What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Battle in the Trenches. I'm Steve Catalano, and I'm with Ryan McGinley. It's Week 10. We're here to talk more fantasy football. We're back from our spooky episode last week in Week 9. We had some good takes, some bad takes, but nonetheless, we're here to give you our favorite starts and sits and the news for Week 10 fantasy football. So without further ado, let's get into it. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Well, you didn't say smash the subscribe button, Steve.
That's you.
So, I mean, I'm not going to say it. That's been your thing when Jonders has been out. So, I'm not going to touch that. But
it has been.
I'm excited to get back into it. I mean, we had a good week last week. I think I hit on literally everything besides, most of it. So, I'm excited to have a little redemption at the quarterback and tight end position. But nonetheless, this is an important week for fantasy football players. Week 10, playoffs are on the line. A lot of teams are 5-4. A lot of teams are 4-5. So let's get into it.
Yep, 6 teams on a bye this week, so there's going to be a lot of probably not so great starts. Guys are not so comfortable putting in your lineups, and guys you're picking up off the waiver and maybe spot starting, also not feeling so great about it. But without further ado, let's get into the news. Josh Gordon has been released by the Patriots as expected and been claimed by the Seahawks. Now, they were super low on the waiver, and they got him at number 28. So a lot of teams didn't even really give him a look, but he signs with the Seahawks, and I really like this fit, going there with already a pretty good established wide receiver core with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett and Russell Wilson, the soon-to-be most likely MVP of this league this year. I like him to go in there and become a pretty good red zone target. How do you feel about him?
I mean, the one kind of hidden takeaway from this that I personally see is they have a physical freak wide receiver that's a rookie that's lighting up the league, and that's DK Metcalf. Honestly, there's a lot of similarities between the two guys. I mean, I think Josh Gordon was a little more polished in his big years, but I think Josh Gordon can come in and tell DK kind of what he was doing those years. And I mean, you get 8 weeks of that from Josh Gordon to DK Metcalf, and that's worth more than the $1 million they're going to pay him. So, short term, I don't think Josh Gordon's going to be more than a flex play in some weeks just because their offense doesn't throw the ball enough. But long term, this is going to be huge for DK Metcalf. He's already leading rookies in receiving yards. He's over 500 yards already. He's on pace for over 1,000, which is crazy for a guy that we were told can't run a route. So, honestly, I think DK Metcalf's going to be a top 20 wide receiver at least next year, just based on the fact that he can take stuff from Josh Gordon this year.
Yeah, Josh Gordon obviously in a better situation than he was with the Patriots, I feel, just being with Russell Wilson and that Patriots offense being unpredictable. Cam Newton being moved to the IR. What does this mean for the Carolina Panthers? I mean, they've had Kyle Allen for pretty much the whole year now, so we can pretty much expect the same production from all the skill players so far.
Yeah, I mean, it gives them kind of more clarity on just the entire situation because for the first couple weeks of Kyle Allen, it seemed like a 2 or 3 week thing. It turned into a 5 week thing, and then the report that came out Saturday or Sunday where Cam Newton's foot didn't heal at all, and he was going to see a specialist, and he didn't run. I mean, that was pretty much the writing in the sand that he was going to be done for the year, and it's unfortunate just because. I mean, he was Superman in the NFL not too long ago, and he's kind of fallen from grace with all these injuries. I think a full offseason will get him back to being able to start somewhere. I don't think it's Carolina, but I think that the guys that are there now have their set roles. I think DJ Moore is the volume guy, Curtis Samuel is the over-the-top guy, and Christian McCaffrey is the 40 points per game guy. So I don't see really anything changing now.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think this is probably going to affect Cam's long-term, how much he gets paid in the future. He was probably set up to be one of the highest-paid quarterbacks ever, and now this injury, sticking for the last few years with the shoulder and, and on the foot, it's not good for him. But anyway, Nick Foles is going to be the starter, named by Doug Marrone, over Gardner Minshew. Gardner Minshew coming off a couple bad weeks in a row. We've seen some Minshew magic throughout the year, and we've seen some ups and downs. But Nick Foles, who was brought in to be the starter, is going to be the starter again. I think they made the right move. I think this isn't going to really hurt anyone's fantasy value. I think DJ Chark is still going to give you good production. I think D.D. Westbrook is going to be fine. How do you feel about Nick Foles, getting the position back?
Personally, there's one issue that I think that Leonard Fournette he's an I formation kind of guy. He likes running downhill. And Nick Foles thrived in an offense that was kind of read option, like the RPO stuff. And I'm kind of concerned on how that's gonna work, especially because Fournette's been, I think he's had the second most touches in the league behind McCaffrey. But nonetheless, I think Nick Foles is a better quarterback, and the Jaguars had to play with their money. I mean, they paid Nick Foles in the offseason, and it was almost the perfect situation for them to be able to say, Minshew wasn't that good in the last week, which is garbage mostly because it was in London. No one plays well in those games against a pretty solid team. So, I mean, I saw it coming, but it's disappointing nonetheless because Minshew really was a solid quarterback all year.
Yeah, Minshew had a couple good matchups actually the last few weeks, like to where he probably could have, if he had good games, it would have been a much tougher decision. But
sure,
like you said, they pretty much set it up for Nick Foles to make a return this week. So I'm excited to see that. And we'll just touch on this real quick. Deshaun Jackson back for your Eagles last week.
Oh, yeah.
And, and he plays just a few snaps before going out. This guy seems to be kind of walking glass the last couple of years, just especially his time with the Eagles, and unfortunately we'll never really see what he could have had because that week 1 splash performance, and we kind of saw that Wentz Deshaun Jackson connection, and it's just not going to happen this year because he's most likely going to miss the rest of the fantasy season for sure. Depending if Philly makes a playoff run, he might come back in the playoffs. But if you had Deshaun Jackson right now, he's a pretty safe drop. I wouldn't worry about stashing him, especially trying to make a playoff run, bye weeks coming in. So you're probably going to want to drop Deshaun Jackson from your lineups. Let's go head over to the doctor's office real quick. Touch on just a few quarterbacks. Matt Ryan looks like he's going to be back in the lineup this week against New Orleans, so that's good. We don't have to see any more Matt Schaub. And, of course, the moment everyone's been waiting for, Pat Mahomes. We're going to really want to, we're really glad that he's back, and we're going to be able to see him play out there. Tyreek Hill has been able to perform, but Travis Kelce has been, up and down and whatnot. How do you feel about Mahomes coming back this week, getting back in everyone's lineups?
I think that it's not going to be as down field attacking, just because they're not going to want him in situations where he's going to get hit below the body. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's going to be quicker stuff because they've got speed guys. I mean, they've got guys that can make plays in open field. So there's no need to throw the ball 50 yards downfield when you can throw it 3 yards and Tyreek Hill can do the rest. So, I mean, I expect them to be safer with him, especially because there's still that weird timetable where he could re-dislocate the knee, and I don't think they're going to want that to happen. So I think it'll be tempered, but, I mean, he still has a chance to throw 3 or 4 touchdowns.
Yeah, personally, as an NFL fan, I'd like to see Pat Mahomes sit out even one more week because you saw those percentages the doctors were talking about, like if he played this past week, they were like 20% higher than they are this week, but there's still like a 10 to 20% chance he could redislocate his knee right now. So I think that's kind of a lot to play with, especially when
100%.
The Chiefs are, they're not in a crazy hard division. The closest team to them is the Raiders, so you don't really feel much of a threat. So I guess maybe if they beat the Packers 2 weeks ago, they would have felt a lot, a little better. But nonetheless, getting back out there, that's your guy. Let's move into the bread and butter of the show. It's the start and sits. I will start with my favorite quarterbacks this week. I like Jameis Winston this week versus Arizona. He's had a couple of performances where he's put up 20 points per game, against Seattle last week and whatnot. And he's just kind of the guy that you're probably going to get 300 yards with, and he's going to toss a couple TDs. Mike Evans has really been flourishing lately, getting a lot of targets. Chris Godwin's still there, obviously. So I like Jameis Winston to, toss the ball plenty of times this week. And I actually like Jimmy Garoppolo this week. He had a really good game last week in Arizona, tossing 4 touchdowns. He's going against Seattle, like I just touched on. Jameis pretty much ate him up last week. Even though they lost, they gave up over 35 points. Seattle is a team you can throw on. Their defense isn't going to be the defense, or it's not going to be a defense that wins in the Super Bowl this year. The offense is going to. Russell Wilson, MVP caliber right now. So that's a team. If you're going against Seattle, I think it sets you up for a good shootout. And I like what I saw from Jimmy G last week and to continue into this week. Who are a couple QB starts that you like?
Yeah, so I've got 2 guys that are kind of comparable to guys that played the teams that they're playing this week, last week. So I've got Kyler Murray. He's going against Tampa Bay. Russell Wilson torched them. They had kind of issues when he got outside the pocket. So I think Kyler Murray is set to have a big game. And then I've got Phillip Rivers against Oakland. Matt Stafford torched Oakland last week. They're very similar teams. They like to air it out. So I fully expect Phillip Rivers to have a top 10 week, and I feel like those two guys should be in your lineups.
How do you feel about, and this is a general question, but how do you feel about teams like playing on Thursday night? Like, do you think that like Phillip Rivers being one of your starts of the week, like, do you think that like the expectations should be tempered just a little?
I get that.
I'm just wondering.
Sure.
In general, I think about that. I hate primetime games.
But I think Phillip Rivers is a psychopath, and he might enjoy this. So that's fine with me. And, I mean, I like the weapons that they have, so I feel like they can really play through anything.
Yeah. Okay, let's head over to the QB sits. One guy I'm sitting this week, surprisingly, we wouldn't have said this a few weeks ago, but Sam Darnold, since he's been back, he has been awful. He's been arguably one of the worst starting quarterbacks that have been playing over the last 3 weeks. You know, we thought their schedule, the Jets schedule, was going to be amazing after they got done with the Patriots, but, you know, they just lost to Miami, and that's really bad. We thought Sam Darnold was going to be a great pickup. You're going to be able to put him in for like 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. And he's a guy I'm sitting this week against the Giants, and I never thought I'd say that, but the Giants just played a pretty decent game against the Cowboys for like the first 3 quarters, maybe first half. So I don't like Sam Darnold this week, even going against the Giants. And another guy I'm sitting is Baker Mayfield versus Buffalo. Buffalo's a lot, yeah, it's a laughing matter, but Buffalo's allowed the 3rd fewest passing yards this year per game, and let's face it, Baker hasn't been able to get the job done, and I don't really know what the Browns are doing as a team. They just aren't running the ball with Nick Chubb as much as they should. Luckily, they get Kareem Hunt back. I think if they choose to go to like a full, 2 running back running game and, play good defense, I think that's probably the smartest decision. And then kind of like let Baker grow with confidence, making some good, some good throws, just short downs and whatnot, and letting the skill players like give the ball to OBJ. Obviously, OBJ has been complaining that they haven't been able to give him the ball enough, and that's completely true. He doesn't have nearly as many red zone targets as we thought he would. I think he has like a handful of red zone targets, and that's just unacceptable. So that all goes with sitting Baker this week, and a guy that's been a pretty big disappointment this year, thinking, sure, top 5 in a lot of people's eyes in the beginning of draft season. Now he's arguably bottom 3rd for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. And I mean, he's just been terrible.
Yeah.
Anytime somebody shows weakness and realizes that they're looking like a jerk by having a Fu Manchu mustache and shaves it post game, they're not mentally there. So I'm concerned about Baker for the rest of the year.
Yeah. All right. Who are you sitting?
I'm sitting guys that are playing against each other again this week, and it's going to be Dak and it's going to be Kirk Cousins, because they're very similar teams that have similar game plans. Both quarterbacks are very efficient with what they're doing, so they're going to make sure that they make the right throws. I think Kirk Cousins has the best passer rating. I think he's got 130 passer rating since week 5. So he's making the correct throws. He's being careful with the ball. And Dak does the same thing. They both have elite running backs. And pretty much whoever makes the first mistake, I feel like is going to lose this game. It's going to be a low-scoring game. I think the ball is going to get run a ton. So I don't expect this to be a pass-first game. So I'm sitting both of those guys.
Yeah, I can definitely see that being like a play defense, run the ball kind of game for both teams. And the team who's down obviously have to throw a little more, but trying to predict that, you can, that's too tough to do. Let's head over to the running back starts. I'm starting Devin Singletary against Cleveland. Devin Singletary, was this his breakout game? I think so. I've been big on Singletary all year. Obviously he had that injury stint, so we weren't able to, really see him flourish, but I think he's coming out. He had over 20 rushes, got in the end zone, put up a ton of fantasy points. So I like Singletary to continue this week against Cleveland. And then a guy that you're probably starting anyway, but I just want to let you know, start Chris Carson, even though he's going against San Francisco. I've, generally faded away from starting players against San Francisco, as you've seen in the past. But, 2 weeks in a row, they faced, the Carolina Panthers and Christian McCaffrey, which obviously Christian McCaffrey is going to eat, but, he ate against San Francisco. And then put Arizona, and Kenyon Drake, guy walks onto the team and has a really big game when he can't do anything in Miami. He doesn't have the starting job. Let's push that aside. We don't think Miami knows what they're doing on, as a football team. But Kenyon Drake is able to have a good game. So Chris Carson, even though it looks like a bad matchup, I think he's gonna, have a really good game. Some running backs you're sitting.
Well, I'm starting a couple first, Steve.
No,
So.
you should probably start some before you sit them, but you could switch the order up if you wanted to.
I mean, I could.
But we're not going to.
Isn't here to be the host, so it doesn't matter. I'm starting David Montgomery against Detroit. Detroit has been gashed a little bit, especially by rookie running backs. I mean, Josh Jacobs torched them this past week, and David Montgomery seemingly came into himself. I think they realized that he's the best back there. They stopped with Mike Davis, and I think at some point, like, Thomas Jones was getting carries for some odd reason. Like, I mean, they're using old guys in Chicago when DeMont is the main guy, and he should be. And I'm also starting Ronald Jones because he's going to get an extended look because they've got to figure out what they're doing in the offseason with all these guys. And Ronald Jones is he's going to get 20-plus touches. So Ronald Jones, just on volume alone, I feel like he should be solid, especially because defenses have to make sure Mike Evans doesn't torch him for 70 yards over the top. So start Ronald Jones.
Yeah, I don't think defense can stop Mike Evans. He's been unbelievable the last few weeks. But I do like that call, Ronald Jones. I think he's the guy. Let's see if we can put another good week out there. Let's go to some running back sits. I am going to sit Devonta Freeman at New Orleans with Matt Ryan's first start back after this little injury stint. And New Orleans has been pretty stout against the run. I think they're top 2 in the league, giving up 10 fantasy points per game to running backs. That's a no-no. You don't want to start guys. So if you have better options and you're not, pushed out by these bye weeks and you have to start them, I'd be considering sitting Freeman, or he'd be a fringe flex starter for me. And another guy I'm sitting is LeSean McCoy. We saw Damian Williams have a huge game last week. He had 14 touches compared to LeSean McCoy's 4, and McCoy can't hold on to the ball. So I think, first of all, I don't know why he runs with the ball with one hand. It's just been
it's been
his whole career. I don't know how he does it. When I see it, I just want to punch it from the TV screen. But Sean McCoy, we're sitting him. I think Damian Williams might be the guy now. Unfortunately, he's not the guy you drafted, but he might become the guy you drafted. So might be that time. If you own a Kansas City Chiefs running back, in the past, it's been really valuable, and I think that might start showing now.
For sure. And the two guys I'm sitting, Joe Mixon, if you weren't sitting him before, you're still going to be sitting him this week because, they came out and he said, I'm frustrated that I'm not getting the ball and that we can't effectively run the ball. You can say it all you want. I'm sure that they tried to run the ball, right? Mm-hmm. But they're bad. Their offensive line's terrible. Losing 2 offensive linemen in the beginning of the year didn't help them. They didn't get 2 new offensive linemen since he said that. Regardless of how many times they want to run the ball, Joe Mixon, it's not going to work. So I'm still not starting Joe Mixon, regardless of what he wants done. And I'm sitting Kalen Ballage because he's a bad running back. And I know when you're watching this, you felt really good about picking up with your fab. You spent $20 on him. If you read my article, I told you not to do that because he's a bad running back. I think he's averaging 2 yards a carry. He can't catch. He seemingly can't figure out which hole to hit. And, he just is on a terrible team full of terrible players. And it's pretty tough to score when you're the guy with the ball and everyone else stinks around you, and so do you. So don't start Ballage, please. For my sake.
Please. He couldn't beat out players that aren't even on the team anymore, players that are getting suspended, and that's the only reason he's starting.
They were trying to tank. They traded all their good players.
They're probably happy about Ballage. Get out there, Ballage.
They said, hey, man, get out there. Kenyon Drake put up 140 in his first game with half a playbook. Man. So we're going to start you because we know you're terrible. And, so... If this is a bad take, please screen grab it.
This is not a bad take. If Ballage has a good game and you started him, your team is probably bad because you started him. But, good for you. Let's head over to you and switch it up and get some wide receiver starts.
Oof. One of the guys I started last week, if you listened, was Mike Williams. And I'm saying fire him back up again.
Oh, yeah.
He's got Oakland because my other starts were, you guessed it, every single Detroit Lions wide receiver, and they let you have it last week.
Okay.
So you combine my 2 solid starts last week, and you get 1 solid Mike Williams start against Oakland. I'm also starting Christian Kirk against Tampa Bay because Tampa Bay seemingly couldn't figure out Tyler Lockett. I'm not saying that he's the same player as Tyler Lockett, but I see similar attributes in Christian Kirk that I see in Tyler Lockett. They're both kind of they're not volume guys, but they can be in bunches, and they both have that speed, that intermittent speed, where they can find 15 yards down the field on some weird curl route. So I like Christian Kirk.
Okay, some wide receiver starts I like, and a guy that you probably, looking at the matchup, might not be happy about starting, but starting Marvin Jones at Chicago. Now, on paper, the matchup looks like crap. Chicago's been pretty good against a fantasy wide receiver this year, but Matt Stafford's been slinging the ball to Galladay and Marvin Jones. They both have big games last week, but I think if anyone's going to eat, I think it's going to be Marvin Jones, and just from watching Bears games over the past couple of years, Marvin Jones usually plays well against Chicago. So I kind of like him to get in the end zone and, have another 50, 60, 70-yard game. So a pretty good game and a guy that you can trust in your lineup with all these bye weeks and whatnot. And another guy I'm starting, Emmanuel Sanders. He's been really pretty good for the 49ers. Now, the first game, had a few catches, but he got in the end zone. Then he gets in the end zone again last week and has over 100 yards. Kind of not unexpected, but we all didn't really know what was going to happen when he went over to San Francisco, but they definitely traded for a reason, and they're showing it. They needed a wide receiver one. And Emmanuel Sanders, his veteran self, he's proving he can still be that, and I'm sure he's very happy to be out of Denver and very happy to be on an undefeated 49ers. So I'm firing Emmanuel Sanders back up like I talked about with Jimmy G against Seattle. They're going to throw the ball a lot. It's going to be a high-scoring game. San Francisco are going to run the ball a lot, and then they're going to use Emmanuel Sanders and pass the ball. So I like Emmanuel Sanders a lot this week. So my receiver sits. I'm sitting JuJu Smith-Schuster against the Rams. Now, they're playing at home, but I just am worried about Jalen Ramsey going against JuJu Smith. Jalen Ramsey is obviously still very, very good at the position, probably best in the league, and now it kind of seems like he has a new spark since he's on the Rams now, off of the Jaguars. So he's been playing really well. So I don't like JuJu this week. And Mason Rudolph just hasn't been the guy that I thought possibly he could be once he got the starting job. He's kind of been able to piece together some good quarters and whatnot and make use of JuJu in the slightest bit. But, he's been okay. But I don't like JuJu this week. Another guy I'm sitting is Robby Anderson over the last 3 games with Sam Darnold, because that's when Sam Darnold's been back since they've been playing. They play New England and Miami. He's had 7 catches over 3 games. He's not the guy we thought he was going to be with Sam Darnold. And maybe if Sam Darnold was, passing the ball a little better, obviously this would be a positive, impact on Robby Anderson. But he's not a guy you can trust in your lineups right now. Even with a lot of guys on bye weeks, I keep mentioning that he's a guy that you probably shouldn't have in your lineup unless you're completely desperate. And if you're completely desperate, you either have a lot of guys on bye or your team's just not very good. So keep Robby Anderson on your bench.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate those. That's pretty good. Yeah, Philly guy.
Glad you don't hate them.
Yeah, no, I mean, I don't have. Luckily for me, I've got none of those guys.
For
so
sure.
I don't have to take your advice. Or
I don't have them either.
Advice. So I mean, whatever. But I'm sitting. He's one of our boys. I'm sitting DK, man.
Oh, it's been so good.
He was elite last week. He looked like the guy that should have been drafted over J.J. Arcega-Whiteside.
He looked like Josh Gordon last week.
He looked like Josh Gordon last week. That's what I'm saying. And he looks so good. Yeah. And is DK my new boy since Terry McLaurin's gonna die with Dwayne Haskins? Maybe.
Hop on.
But I've got to sit him this week because San Fran's pass defense is elite, and it wouldn't shock me at all if they put Richard Sherman on DK at all, just because. I mean, Tyler Lockett's going to make a fool of anybody. I mean, he's a top 5 wide receiver, and I feel confident saying that at this point.
Oh, yeah.
So, DK might see a little Sherman action, and, I mean, that's not good for anybody.
Nope.
And I'm also sitting Tyler Boyd against Baltimore because, I mean, it's a really good defense that's playing exceptionally well with a scrub quarterback and a running back that's mad and a couple bad wide receivers and Tyler Boyd. He's not a bad wide receiver, but I mean, he's in a bad situation, so I'm not playing Tyler Boyd. And you know what? I'm going to go, Johnners isn't here, so I'm going to go right in my tight ends because I make the rules here. And I'm starting Jack Doyle. Jack Doyle found the end zone with Brian Hoyer under center last week, and maybe they had some weird second string thing in preseason. So he was hit on a touchdown, and then Brian Hoyer looked for him again on his interception in the end zone. So he likes Jack Doyle. So I'm starting Jack Doyle, and I'm sitting Jimmy Graham because Devonta Adams is back. We're not seeing the same volume that we saw before with Jimmy Graham. Aaron Rodgers seemingly just lasered in on Devontae Adams in the middle of that game last week. So Jimmy Graham's red zone appeal is no longer there. They've got too many weapons for you to just kind of throw a dart at Jimmy Graham, so I'm sitting Jimmy Graham.
Okay, my tight end start, and this is taking a lot for me to do. You watch me on camera right now. It's hard to get out right now, but I guess I'm gonna start O.J. Howard, and this is pretty much if you need a spot start, if you're streaming tight end, or if your tight end's on bye. O.J. Howard has been bad this year. We all know that. He was a bad draft pick, one of the worst draft picks this year, and just has not been involved in the offense at all. But with Cameron Brate injured and their backup injured, and they're going against Arizona, if O.J. Howard's going to have one good game, it's going to be this week. And if he doesn't have a good, game this week, just don't ever say his name again. I don't even care if he goes to a good team that uses the tight end and he's a star. I'm never talking about him again. It's not true. But just put him in your lineups and just pray. He's got a really good matchup, and let's hope that he can put together a good game. If he finds the end zone, he's going to have like 50 yards. It's going to be a good game. Arizona's bad. And then we are sitting Jacob Hollister. It's going to be a popular pickup. He's coming off a pretty big game. He's, Russell Wilson's new guy. No, not starting Jacob Hollister. I'm more of like a Abercrombie or American Eagle guy anyway.
Can we end this show already?
I don't wear any of those clothes. But
you were Abercrombie Hollister for sure. Get out of here.
Oh shoot. Anyway, Jacob Hollister is not a guy you want to just throw in your lineup. He's going against San Francisco, like you said, they have a really good pass defense, and I guess theoretically you could find the end zone because Russell Wilson has been just throwing mad touchdowns this year, so he could find the end zone, but he's not a guy I want to put in my lineup unless I'm completely desperate. So I guess it could be O.J. Howard. They could swap positions here. You could start Jacob Hollister and sit O.J. Howard. That's how much of a dumpster fire the tight end position is, guys. It's pretty bad. But anyway, that's going to be the end of our starts and sits. Ryan, you got any last-minute advice for Week 10 fantasy football?
Congrats if you made it this far. And if your team stinks and you're like 2-7, please set a solid lineup for me because I'm 5-4, pretty much across the board.
Yeah.
I need a couple teams to win. I need a couple teams to lose. So if you're a bad team, check your lineup, just for me.
Hey, you maybe need some of those free wins.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, if you're playing me, don't check your lineup. But if you're not playing me, make some waiver wire moves. I want people complaining to me that like, oh, my friend is 1-8 and he picked up Kalen Ballage and I wanted him. Like, just make a little fun out of it. Yeah.
Person playing me, please pick up Kalen Ballage and start him. I would love that.
Exactly.
Well, anyway, thanks for checking us out for Week 10 Fantasy Football Starts and Sits, Battle in the Trenches. Go check out climbthepocket.com. Find us on Twitter at climbthepocket. I'm at Steve 2.0. He's at Bootleg Fantasy. And anyway, if you've been checking out our videos, we really appreciate it. We really appreciate if you subscribe to the channel. We're trying to boost it and whatnot. Try to get some giveaways going and whatnot. Yeah. And if you guys like the video,
I need some ad revenue, man. Like,
dying over here. If you guys like the video and subscribe, we'll promise to bring a giveaway. Maybe give away another Madden code, something like that. Maybe a signed card, helmet. Yeah, I'm paying for it all. Saw it on camera right here.
It's
giveaway coming.
You have to drink hot sauce anyways.
I do. I got a lot. I might have some baggage, but that's only if we get some new subscribers. So anyway, check us out at those handles on Twitter and climbthepocket.com. Thanks for checking us out.